The silent invasion, it was an ordinary day. At least it seemed like one. The sun was high in the sky, and the streets of the world's most advanced cities were filled with the hum of progress. People moved through their daily routines, oblivious to the fate that was about to change everything. Technology had made life easy for everyone. From self-driving cars to virtual assistants, everything was automated. The future was now, and humanity felt unstoppable. But then it happened. A sudden loud sound like a roar from the heavens filled the air. It wasn't a storm, nor was it thunder. The sky above went dark for just a moment. Then, the first object appeared, a massive black shape, unlike anything humans had ever seen, sliced through the clouds heading straight toward Earth. People stopped what they were doing. Some stared in disbelief, others pulled out their phones to capture the moment. No one understood what they were witnessing. Was it a comet? A satellite crashing down? Maybe a military exercise? Before anyone could find out, it happened again. And again. Objects like giant shadows appeared in the sky all over the world. They were not falling, they were descending. Slowly, silently. The alien ships, cloaked in dark, shifting metal, hovered above major cities. New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing. Watching, waiting. The eerie silence that followed was worse than any roar of war. The world was frozen in fear, unsure of what was happening or what would come next. A few hours later, chaos erupted. Electricity went out everywhere. Airports shut down. Trains stopped moving. Phones and computers went dead. People were left in the dark, literally and figuratively. The government tried to communicate with the public, but all signals were blocked. It was as if the entire planet had been cut off from the rest of the universe. Panic set in. People ran through the streets shouting in confusion. Cars crashed into one another as traffic lights went dark. Governments declared states of emergency, but there was no one to communicate with. The invaders didn't speak. They didn't attack. They just watched. Scientists and military experts scrambled to understand the situation, but every attempt was futile. Nothing they tried could break through the alien ship's strange energy shields. Nothing could reach them. The technology they had was useless against these invaders, whose power was so far beyond humanity's own that it felt like the end of the world. The first contact with the invaders came through a simple broadcast. A single message appeared on every screen across the globe. "We are here to test you." And then, just as mysteriously as they had appeared, the alien ships began to move. They were not here to invade, at least not yet. No, they were watching, studying, waiting for something. But what? What was this test? And why had they chosen Earth? The world was on edge, unable to understand. Humanity had never faced an enemy so powerful, so silent, so perfect in its technology. There was no war, no battle cries, just the slow, steady realization that Earth was no longer in control. The silent invasion had begun. The clock was ticking, and no one knew if humanity was ready for the test ahead. The desperate response. The world had barely begun to grasp what was happening. The shock of the silent invasion still hung in the air like a fog that no one could shake off. The first 24 hours felt like a dream, a bad one. People were lost, confused, and terrified. Governments had no answers, and the alien ships remained, as silent as the grave, hanging in the sky, watching. The initial wave of panic gave way to chaos. Panic buying drained the shelves as people hoarded food, water, and supplies, not knowing what would come next. Every government, from the superpowers to the smallest nations, scrambled to respond. But they were all powerless. The invaders didn't need to attack. They already had humanity's most precious resource: time. In underground bunkers, military leaders and scientists raced to find a way to fight back. The world's best minds gathered in secrecy, pooling together their resources, but all their efforts were in vain. The alien ships were beyond their comprehension. Their technology was far ahead of anything humanity had ever imagined. Every attempt to communicate, every missile fired, every satellite launched, all of it failed. The invaders didn't care about Earth's military. They didn't attack. They didn't kill. They simply watched, silent, observing. And as the days stretched on, the message they sent became clear. Humanity wasn't even a threat. Humanity wasn't the target. Humanity was the experiment. As the world tried to pull itself together, a breakthrough came, but it was not from any human source. An independent scientist, Dr. Ilara Dean, an expert in quantum mechanics, discovered something chilling. While the alien ships couldn't be detected by traditional methods, their energy pulses were different. Hidden within the data, she found a signal that seemed to come from the ships themselves. It wasn't a warning, and it wasn't an attack. It was something far more unnerving. A test. The aliens had been observing humanity for centuries, watching as Earth civilizations rose and fell. They had waited for the right moment to make contact. But the message that Dr. Dean deciphered revealed the shocking truth. These aliens had no interest in the survival of Earth. They were simply measuring humanity's potential. Their presence, Dr. Dean said in a broadcast that reached global media, is not to destroy us, it is to judge us. We are under evaluation. Her voice trembled with disbelief as she spoke. The question is not if we survive. The question is, can we rise to meet this challenge? Can we prove we are worthy? Her words struck a chord with millions. While some crumbled under the weight of this revelation, others saw it as a call to arms. If humanity wasn't facing a war, then they were facing a trial, a test of strength, intelligence, and willpower. But how could a species with so many flaws rise to meet such a challenge? As Dr. Dean's broadcast spread, whispers began to circulate among the global resistance groups. If this was a test, then perhaps the answer wasn't in fighting back with weapons, but in showing something the aliens didn't expect. Humanity's ability to adapt, to innovate, to overcome the odds. But the clock was ticking. The aliens weren't going to wait forever. And time, as humanity soon realized, was running out faster than anyone could have imagined. The desperate response had begun. But where it would lead, no one could say. The silent invasion had turned into a trial, and the first question was on everyone's mind. Would humanity rise or would it fall? The chosen ones. The world was still reeling from the shock of the silent invasion, but humanity had little time to dwell on the fear. There was a new weight on everyone's shoulders, an undeniable sense that they were being watched, tested, and judged by a power far beyond their own. The question that lingered in the air was no longer about survival. It was about evolution. Could humanity rise to the challenge, prove its worth, and become something greater? In secret, deep within hidden bunkers and underground labs, a new hope was born. The governments and resistance groups, struggling to understand the alien technology, had begun a new project, the chosen ones. These were not just soldiers or leaders. They were the best, the brightest, and the most resilient humans. People selected from every corner of the earth, chosen for their ability to adapt, to think outside the box, and to defy the odds. But there was more to it than just intelligence or strength. The chosen ones were undergoing something extraordinary, an experiment of their own. Scientists and engineers had been working day and night to fuse alien technology with human biology, creating a new breed of soldier. Each of the chosen ones had undergone genetic modifications, enhancements that were supposed to make them stronger, faster, and smarter. They were now part human, part alien. The boundaries between what was considered human and other were beginning to blur. The first test of these enhancements came quickly. When the chosen ones were deployed for their first mission, it was clear that they were no longer just regular people. Their minds were sharper, their reflexes lightning fast. They could solve complex problems in seconds and had the strength to take on entire squads of soldiers with ease. They were what humanity had always dreamed of, a step beyond human limits. But with this power came a new kind of burden. As the chosen ones trained and learned, doubts began to grow. How much of humanity were they willing to lose in order to rise to the alien challenge? With every new enhancement, they were becoming more than human. But were they losing something essential in the process? Were they still human at all? Captain Arya Kane, one of the first chosen, wrestled with this question. She had been a top-level officer in the military before the invasion, but now, after her genetic enhancements, she was something more, something she wasn't sure she recognized anymore. Her body could heal faster, her senses were heightened, and her mind worked like a supercomputer. But with each passing day, the more she trained, the more she felt like an outsider in her own skin. Her thoughts were no longer just her own. Her emotions were being overridden by the strange alien influence that pulsed through her veins. On the outside, the chosen ones were perfect warriors, ready to face any challenge. But inside, they were questioning who they had become. What was left of their humanity? Was the test meant to prove that humanity could transcend its weaknesses? Or was it about something deeper? Something more terrifying? Arya, like the others, had no answers. She only knew one thing: the aliens were still watching. And they weren't waiting for humanity to simply survive. They were waiting for them to prove that they could rise above their own limits, to show that they could evolve beyond their flaws. As Arya stood before the team, ready to lead them into the next phase of the war, one thought consumed her. Are we really ready for what comes next? The chosen ones were humanity's last hope. But as they began to unlock powers that could change the fate of the world, the question remained: would they be able to retain what made them human, or would they too become just another experiment in the eyes of the aliens? And the answer to that, Arya knew, would only reveal itself once the true test began. The first clash, the world had been bracing for the inevitable moment when the chosen ones would face their first real challenge. After weeks of preparation, training, and internal struggles about what they had become, the time had finally arrived. The resistance had gathered intelligence, crucial data from covert missions, that suggested a key weakness in the alien invasion fleet. The invaders had set up a massive control hub deep in the heart of one of Earth's remaining untouched cities, Sydney, Australia. It was an ambitious target, but if the resistance could strike a blow here, they might destabilize the invaders' operations. The chosen ones were called to the front lines for the first time. Captain Arya Kane, now fully aware of her enhanced abilities, stood at the head of the team, looking out across the horizon. There was no turning back. They were about to engage the aliens in the first true confrontation. The city, once a symbol of human achievement and technological marvel, had now become a battleground. Alien ships loomed above the skyline, casting long shadows over a once thriving metropolis. The plan was simple: penetrate the alien defenses, destroy their communication tower, and retreat before reinforcements could arrive. But nothing about this mission was simple. As the chosen ones moved into position, a strange silence filled the air. It wasn't the calm before the storm. It was the silence of inevitability, as if the aliens had been waiting for them. Then, without warning, the first attack came. A burst of energy, unlike anything the humans had ever seen, slammed into the ground ahead of the team, sending debris flying in every direction. The ground trembled, and the sky above crackled with unnatural energy. The aliens had been expecting them. What followed was chaos. The chosen ones, enhanced in every way, quickly adapted. Arya, her mind working faster than ever, coordinated her team with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. The enhancements that had once made her feel like an outsider now made her a weapon of unimaginable efficiency. She could predict enemy movements before they happened. She could sense the smallest vibrations in the ground, allowing her to dodge attacks that would have been fatal to anyone else. But even with all their enhancements, the chosen ones were facing an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered. The aliens moved like liquid shadows, impossibly fast, impossibly precise. They didn't just fight with advanced technology. They fought with a calm, almost terrifying intelligence. Every move the chosen made was countered with eerie precision. It was as though the aliens had already anticipated every tactic, every strategy. In the heat of battle, one of the chosen, Sergeant Leo Voss, found himself face to face with an alien soldier. Unlike the others, this creature seemed to possess a strange, almost human-like aura. It didn't attack immediately. It watched him, calculating. Leo's enhanced strength allowed him to land a blow, but the alien didn't flinch. Instead, it reached out, touching his arm with a cold, metallic hand. In that instant, Leo's mind was flooded with images, alien landscapes, strange symbols, and a deep, unsettling voice that whispered in his ear, "You are not ready." The voice was almost a warning. Before Leo could react, the alien disappeared into the shadows, leaving him stunned and disoriented. This moment of doubt spread across the battlefield. The chosen ones were not invincible. They were powerful, yes, but the aliens were something else entirely, something far older, far more experienced. This was no simple war of force. It was a test of will, of adaptability. The aliens weren't just fighting to win. They were trying to break the chosen ones' spirits, to show them that power alone wouldn't be enough. As the battle raged on, the humans began to fight not just for survival, but for something more. They fought for their identity, their humanity. They had come to this battle believing that their new abilities could give them the upper hand. But now they were learning that power alone couldn't win a war against an enemy who was always one step ahead. In the end, the battle in Sydney ended with a bittersweet victory. The chosen ones succeeded in destroying the alien communication hub, disrupting their forces. But the cost was high. Several members of the team were injured. And Leo was left with something much more dangerous than a wound, doubt. Was humanity ready to face the alien challenge? Or was this only the beginning of a war that they might not survive? The aliens had sent a message. The real fight had just begun. And this time, it wasn't about power. It was about resilience. The chosen ones had won the battle, but the war was far from over. And the aliens were watching, waiting for humanity to prove that it was more than just a species on the brink of destruction. They wanted to see if humanity could adapt, evolve, and overcome the greatest test of all. Betrayal from within. The victory in Sydney had felt like a fleeting dream. The damage was done, but the sense of triumph was hollow. Humanity's first major victory over the aliens was tainted with something far darker, doubt. The chosen ones had proven themselves on the battlefield, but now a new, more insidious enemy had emerged, a fracture within their ranks. The most dangerous enemy wasn't always the one that fired the first shot, but the one who would betray you when you least expected it. The weeks following the battle were spent in secrecy as the chosen ones and the global resistance worked to rebuild their strength. New strategies were formed, weapons were adapted, and new plans were made. Yet within the quiet moments of recovery, an unsettling change began to ripple through the team. It was subtle at first, a passing glance here, an odd decision there. But soon it was impossible to ignore. Something was off. Captain Arya Kane, still reeling from the aftermath of the battle, began to sense the growing tension within the group. The once tightly knit team had become fractured. Trust was becoming harder to come by, and every time the chosen ones gathered for a briefing, she felt an invisible wall between her and some of the others. The question on everyone's mind was simple, yet terrifying. Who could they trust now? It was during a routine mission briefing that the betrayal was finally exposed. A message came through the Resistance's encrypted communications network, one that wasn't meant for their eyes. It was a set of coordinates, and in its coded message, a single line of text stood out. The chosen will fall, and I will be there to witness it. At first, Arya thought it was some kind of mistake, a glitch, a misdirected message. But as the code was cracked, the truth hit like a thunderclap. The message wasn't from the aliens, it was from someone inside their own team, someone who had been with them all along. The traitor was revealed to be Sergeant Leo Voss, the very same soldier who had come face to face with the alien soldier in Sydney, the one who had heard that haunting voice, "You are not ready." At first, no one could believe it. Leo, the soldier, who had fought so fiercely alongside them, was now the one who had turned against them. Arya confronted him, but Leo didn't even try to deny it. There was no anger in his eyes, no fear. He was calm, almost eerily so, as if this was always part of the plan. "I didn't join you to save Earth," Leo confessed, his voice steady but cold. "I joined because the aliens are right. Humanity is a failure. We are not meant to survive. The test they're conducting, it's to see if we can evolve, but we're not evolving, Arya. We're doomed to repeat our mistakes. The aliens are trying to save us from ourselves. I'm helping them." The words hit Arya like a slap. Leo's reasoning was twisted, but in his mind it made sense. He saw the aliens not as invaders, but as saviors, cold, calculating, and necessary to rid Earth of its flaws. He believed that the aliens' test was not a challenge for power, but an opportunity for humanity to shed its weaknesses, and he was willing to betray his own kind to see that vision realized. As Leo's dark confession sank in, Arya realized that the true battle wasn't just against the aliens, it was now against the very people who had once stood by their side. This betrayal was more than a personal failure. It was a test of their unity, a test of their ability to hold on to their humanity in the face of overwhelming adversity. But even more unsettling was the realization that Leo wasn't acting alone. In the shadows of the resistance, whispers began to surface. Other members of the team had been showing signs of doubt, of questioning the motives of their own mission. Arya could no longer trust the very people she had once called allies. What would happen to the chosen ones if they couldn't even trust each other? What would happen if the test was not just about humanity's survival, but about their ability to resist the very temptation of betrayal? The rest of the team, still reeling from Leo's treachery, had to make a choice: confront their own internal fractures and regain their trust, or fall apart under the weight of doubt and division. With Leo's betrayal now exposed, the chosen ones were forced to face the most important question of all. Could they overcome the darkest part of themselves in time to stop the alien invasion? Or would their own inner turmoil destroy them first? The test had just shifted from the battlefield to the heart of humanity itself. The turning point. The days after Leo's betrayal felt like a slow unraveling. The team that had once been united by their shared purpose was now fractured beyond repair. Trust, that fragile thread that had bound the chosen ones together, was gone. What was left was a group of warriors, each of them struggling with the weight of their own doubts, their own fears, and the realization that they were no longer just fighting the aliens. They were fighting themselves. But in the deepest corners of Earth's remaining strongholds, humanity was not ready to give up. The resistance had been shaken, but it wasn't broken. The chosen ones, though divided, knew they had one last chance. The alien invaders had made one critical mistake: an overlooked vulnerability in their fleet. A massive alien command ship, cloaked in shadow and stationed deep within the heart of the alien operation, held the key to their downfall. If they could infiltrate this ship, disable its core systems, they could send the invaders into chaos. It was their only hope, and they had to act fast. Arya Kane, despite everything, still held on to the belief that humanity had a chance. She had seen the potential in herself and her team, even after Leo's betrayal. She knew that the chosen ones' greatest strength was not their enhanced abilities, but their humanity, the very thing the aliens had underestimated. But to confront this final mission, they would need to come together once more, to push past their fractured trust, and face the enemy that had been watching them all along. In a secret meeting deep beneath the surface, the remaining chosen ones gathered. There was no fanfare, no speeches, just a cold, hard realization that this mission was no longer about saving the world. It was about proving that humanity could overcome anything, even its own internal divisions. Captain Arya stood before them, her voice steady but laced with a quiet intensity. "The aliens think they've won," she began, her eyes scanning the faces of her team. "They've broken us apart. They've shown us our own weaknesses. But what they don't understand is that humanity isn't about perfection. It's about survival. It's about rising when we fall, getting back up when we've been knocked down." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We may be divided, but that doesn't mean we're defeated. This is our last shot. If we fail, Earth falls. But if we succeed, If we come together and complete this mission, we not only take down the aliens, we prove that humanity is worth saving. The team stood in silence, each of them reflecting on the truth in Arya's words. It wasn't about their enhanced strength, their alien technology, or their ability to outfight the invaders. It was about something deeper. It was about what made them human, their ability to adapt, to rise from the ashes, to fight against the odds, even when the world seemed to be falling apart. The plan was set. They would infiltrate the alien command ship, a sleek black vessel suspended over the last untouched human city, Berlin. Hidden in its shadow were the answers, the key to undoing the alien hold over Earth. The chosen ones had to breach the ship, disable its core, and broadcast a signal that would disrupt the aliens' command structure. But it was a suicide mission. They all knew it. As they prepared for the operation, something changed in the air. A new resolve. Arya could feel it. The tension that had hung over them for weeks ever since Leo's betrayal was lifting. It wasn't gone, but it was fading. They had made a choice. To fight for each other, to fight for humanity, to prove that the chosen ones were more than just experiments. They were human, imperfect but capable of great things. As they boarded the craft that would carry them into the heart of the alien stronghold, Arya felt a sense of something powerful. It wasn't just hope. It was the will to survive, to push through the darkness even if they had to face the very creatures that had torn their world apart. The aliens were waiting, but they weren't ready for what was about to happen. The moment they breached the atmosphere, the world seemed to hold its breath. Every piece of technology, every alien force on Earth would be watching. The chosen ones weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to prove that even in the face of impossible odds, humanity could overcome, evolve, and rise to the challenge. And as they descended toward the alien ship, Arya knew one thing for certain. This was their turning point. Whether they succeeded or failed, humanity had already won. They had proven that no matter how dark things got, there was always a way to turn the tide. Now they just had to survive long enough to make sure the aliens knew it too. The final showdown. The alien command ship loomed large, its dark form hanging over the ruins of Berlin like a predator watching its prey. The chosen ones had made it this far, but as they approached the heart of the alien stronghold, the weight of the moment settled upon them like a heavy fog. Every step they took, every breath they inhaled, seemed to echo with the magnitude of what was at stake. This was no longer just a battle for Earth's survival. It was the final test, the moment that would determine whether humanity could rise above its flaws, its fears, and its fractured trust. Arya Kane stood at the forefront of the team, her eyes fixed on the massive, shifting structure that now stood between them and the future of Earth. The mission was simple: breach the command center, disable its core systems, and send a signal to the rest of the alien fleet that humanity was no longer to be underestimated. If they succeeded, the aliens' control over Earth would crumble. If they failed, the world would be plunged into an eternal darkness, and humanity would be nothing more than an experiment, erased from existence. But the stakes were higher than anyone had anticipated. As they neared the command ship's entrance, an eerie silence enveloped the battlefield. The usual hum of alien technology, the cold buzz of energy, all seemed to fade into an unnatural stillness. It was as though the aliens were waiting, not just for the chosen ones, but for something else. The tension in the air was palpable, thick with the weight of destiny. The last time they had faced the invaders, the aliens had been silent observers, but now, they were more than that. They were watching with a cold, calculating interest. The chosen ones weren't just soldiers to them anymore. They were a puzzle, a question, an enigma to be solved. And as they entered the ship's heart, Arya realized with a chill that the aliens' test wasn't over. It had just begun. The core of the command ship was unlike anything the humans had encountered. It was a vast hollow space pulsing with a strange organic energy. The walls were alive, shifting, growing like veins through a massive, living organism. It was both alien and eerily familiar, a reminder of how humanity had once been on the edge of its own evolution. The Chosen Ones had come to destroy this alien hold on Earth, but now they were beginning to understand that what they were facing wasn't just an enemy. It was a mirror of what humanity could become if they chose to evolve. The aliens were waiting, but not in silence. A single figure emerged from the shadows. It was unlike the others, more humanoid in shape, but with an elegance that suggested it was the mind behind the invasion. It moved with fluid grace, its presence unsettling in its calm. It was the alien leader, the one who had been watching humanity's every move, analyzing every step, every decision, and now it was ready to speak. "You have come to end this," the leader said, its voice not through sound, but through thought. The words echoed in their minds. But the question remains, are you worthy? Your species, so flawed, so imperfect. You fight with fire, with violence, but you do not understand the true nature of this test. Arya clenched her fists, the weight of the words gnawing at her. This wasn't just a battle of technology. It was a battle of philosophies. The aliens had never truly wanted to conquer Earth. They had wanted to see if humanity could prove it was capable of greatness, of transcending its own limitations. But in the face of this revelation, Arya's resolve hardened. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for their future, for their right to define what it meant to be human. "You're wrong," she said, her voice steady, unwavering. "Humanity is more than its flaws. We've made mistakes. We've fallen, but we've always gotten back up. That's what makes us human. And that's why we're worthy." The alien leader paused as if considering her words. For a moment, the ship seemed to pulse, the walls around them humming with energy. Then, the leader spoke again. "Very well," it said. "You will prove yourselves, or you will perish." The final battle unfolded in a flash of chaotic brilliance. The Chosen Ones moved with a precision they hadn't felt before, their enhancements pushing them to the very limits of human potential. But the alien leader was not alone. The ship itself seemed to come alive, reacting to every movement, every strike. Energy blasts shot from the walls, creating barriers and obstacles that tested the Chosen One's resolve at every turn. Arya and her team fought not just against the aliens, but against the very ship that sought to destroy them. Each blow they struck, each move they made, was a defiance of the test the aliens had set for them. And in that moment, Arya realized something profound. This wasn't about defeating the aliens with power.